Hello there one and all, and thank you very much for tuning in to episode 597 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube as always. Whether you're watching the live or you're watching the recording, you are very, very welcome. Alex is here. Thanks for the comment, Alex, saying hello Mr. P and hello to everyone. So good to have another Scented Sunday. My scent of the day is Angel's Dust by Francesca Bianchi. I adore her work. Etruscan water was like a revelation. More comments coming in. Who's that? Pat Lester says hello. Cody says hi from Idaho. Oriana says hello. Or Xavier says good evening. Can't wait for the mysterious guest. That's Wednesday, right? Okay. So Dushan is here as well. Hello, all of you. Whether you're watching the live or you're watching the recording, please feel free to leave a comment, ask a question at any time. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do consider doing so. Plan for today. Well, the plan has been sort of necessitated by the fact that we need to make sure that Wednesday is episode 600. So we're doing 3 episodes back to back today, 597, 598 and 599. I had it all planned out like that anyway. Trust me, you know me well enough to know that I planned it that way. 3 episodes back to back, 2 showcasey type episodes. We're looking at the new Brioni Extraits in this one. Then we'll come back with another sort of mini showcase. And then I thought it might be nice to do a little bit of a sort of vintage anniversary type celebration thing. And heads up again, this Wednesday, so what's that going to be? The 12th of November at 3:30 p.m. UK time. 3:30 p.m. UK time, to mark the fact that we'll have reached episode 600 of Love at First Scent. I will be doing an interview with a very, very, very special mystery guest. And as I've been saying, that lots of guesses have been coming through as to who it might be. And hopefully I haven't let anything out of the bag. But the hints that I gave you is that this person pretty much probably knows everything there is to know about the industry. They've been in it for a very long time, and they have never been on this channel before. So let us hope the gremlins allow us to go ahead with the interview. What are folks saying here? Good evening. Scent of the day is Bogue Come, says Gender Goblin. Still not sure about it. Very dense, hard to pass. Interesting. Meme says, I was sincerely hoping this episode will focus on the new peacock-looking Miss Dior flanker just for the chaos. I'm not sure I even knew about that one. What, have they done like a sort of peacock design bottle or something? Luca Turin says, Alex Desmond. Who knows? Who knows? All will be revealed. And Raucous Retread says, greetings, I love this house. This is one of the few houses I'm working on owning the whole catalogue. So I guess you mean the Brioni, which is a good nudge for me to get going, because we've got 4 of these, 4 in the next one. We need to get a move on. So Brioni, there we go. This is the little discovery set of their new Extraits, Les Extraits de Parfum. Nice prosaic name. We do like a good prosaic name sometimes. Brioni, interesting sort of brand in as far as the perfume world is concerned, because they've sort of been under the radar, but have been putting out very consistent stuff. So when did the original Brioni, well, I say original because they're when the original of the current crop, because there were older Brioni scents as well, but the original from the current batch came out, I should have looked this up before we started, but I want to say maybe something like 5 or 6 years ago, something like that. Does that sound about right? And it was really interesting, the original EDP. It is interesting. In many ways, a classic masculine done by Michel Almerac, but you could see his predilections and his concerns and his loves all over that perfume, because it was in many ways like a sort of update of Fahrenheit, which of course he had a lot to do with, and Fahrenheit was in itself sort of homage to Grey Flannel, which I think is marking its 50th anniversary this year. Not that that's one of the ones we're going to be looking at in the 3rd video, because I don't actually, to my shame, have a bottle of original Grey Flannel. And then we had other versions of the original scent, and they've kind of been, I think, fairly quietly plodding along, but clearly doing sufficiently well for the powers that be at Brioni to decide that they want to put out 4 extra strength type perfumes in quite flashy bottles. And Extraits for men, to be sure, are not as rare as they used to be, but they're still not that common a thing. Well, in the grand scheme of things, if you sort of look at the big picture at the moment, Extraits are pretty rare full stop. And I think it's still only, the grand houses that make some of their perfumes available in Extrait. So, we do still have Chanel No. 5, although that isn't always available in the UK, Chanel No. 5 Extrait. And I think Dior still do some of theirs. Guerlain, I think, still do some of theirs. I'm pretty sure they do not as many as they used to, which is just tragic. So Extraits for men, still something of an underexplored area. These ones very, very definitely reference specific materials. Is that a strategy to make them more accessible, to make them easier to understand? I don't know. I have to admit that I personally find it a little bit disappointing when that's the policy that's taken in for naming a perfume, because I think we've had our fill of, well, in this case, iris something, incense something, labdanum something, and papyrus something. But if it makes the names easier to remember, if it makes it easier to identify which scent is which, fine. But it's not the most creative thing to have done, I think. So I think we should get going. Each one done by a different perfumer. I reckon we ought to start with the labdanum. The labdanum is called Labdanum Brut. Here they all are, unfolded for your viewing pleasure. Is this still doing that not focusing thing? Let me see. Oh no, that has focused, hasn't it? Yes, it has. Okay, well, stop stressing. The labdanum is by, I will tell you right now, by Mylène Alran. I have a press release. We have pre-sprayed blotters. We have pre-labeled blotters. We can get this show on the road now. Where are my Brionis? Here we go. Okay. I'm starting with this one. I've just had very, very, very quick sort of initial sniffs of all of them. And I'm starting with this one because I'm kind of working my way up. I think the labdanum was the one that, on initial sniff anyway, let's see what the pre-spray blotter is doing. On initial sniff, I found just the most predictable one, the sort of least engaging in a way. Does Sauvage have an Extrait, says Mitra Kai? Oh, I expect it has about 12. Each one, lovingly squeezed out of Johnny Depp's cheeks. The ones on his face. Do you have Ulrich Lang Nightscape for testing and review, says Stargazer? I pass. I don't know. I certainly don't have a full bottle of it. I remember this collection being very, very expensive, says Holy Hearted. Alex says, give me blurb, names and ideas, and not only a 2-word list of ingredients and a name. Too much rose in this one. Odor Rose Pure, says So6. Thank you very much for keeping us on track. Yes, I thought it starts off kind of denser than you think. And I think it sets the tone for the collection. The others are better. If initial sniffs are anything to go by, the others are better, but they all have this. They all seem to want to advertise from the word go, and kind of make it very, very obvious with brass finishings and heavy polished wood trimmings that they are Extraits. I think they want to convince you of their seriousness and their weightiness a tiny little bit too much. You kind of think, okay, well, you should just have the confidence to just be. But we might get onto that. So it starts off very, very obviously resinous. You get that kind of smoky, woody, slightly cough medicine-y feel of labdanum. And you also get and I guess stronger than expected rose note. And to give it its due, I suppose the idea of a rose from a collection that has so far been aimed squarely at men is, I guess, unusual, it has to be said. So I know I'm kind of contradicting myself a little bit here, but I suppose I am and I'm not, because the rose is there, but this isn't an out-and-out rose composition, you know. I thought if they really wanted to be gutsy and say, okay, we've done a rose extrait for men, they should have gone all the way. And I think the lack of a kind of marked opening, the lack of a marked top section, top note, is a bit disappointing, because it just means that you immediately just like kind of plunge into this base, hey, you know, I'm going to take charge of this board meeting and wow you all with, you know, the flashy car keys that I'm just kind of like subtly place on the table. And I think there isn't enough of a journey, at least to my nose. Is it like Serge Lutin's Couche du Diable, says Gender Goblin? That was more interesting. That was weirder, that was stranger, that had a lot more happening from sort of top to bottom. For layering potential, probably, says Holy Hearted. Yeah, maybe. Now, which way around would you like me to do this? Shall we do press release as we go along? Let's smell 2, and then do press release for those 2, and then look at pre-spray blotters. So it certainly feels as though it's made with high quality materials, but it's almost as though, I suppose the word I'm trying to not go for, even though it's probably the best word in this case, it feels quite conservative, which is odd, despite the presence of the rose. You would have thought that actually the rose would take it in the opposite of a sort of conservative direction, but somehow it doesn't. It somehow managed to make rose rather straight-laced, which is odd. Put that one aside for the moment. Wow, these extraits are quite expensive, says More Violette. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but $335 is too rich for my blood, at least for a less familiar brand. Who was I talking about perfume price with the other day? Again, yes, actually, it wasn't that long ago, and we sort of said that it was somebody else who, you know, writes about perfume and talks about perfume and thinks about perfume, and we sort of said we've got to this point where we just sort of internally have to not allow ourselves to have like a coronary each time we get a press release about another perfume that costs 300 odd pounds, you know, for 100 mils. But I'm not sure what else there is to say about that at this stage. At least this one doesn't smell cheap. I want full cinema in Technicolor happening in my nose when smelling a perfume, says Alex Desmond. If we were to buy a Picasso, we wouldn't pay solely for the canvas and paint, says Exquis. Didn't Francis Kirkjean say that? Wasn't that in an interview with me? Am I right? Or have I just completely imagined that? Okay, let's move on. Let's do the incense one. So this is Encens Mineral. The idea of a mineralic incense is not exactly original, right? This one is credited to somebody whose name, I mean, if I'd come across this name before, I hadn't remembered it. It's somebody called, I'm sure I'm going to completely butcher her surname. It's Nisrine Boisaoui Grillier. But if you look her up, she has got quite a few perfumes to her name, including several from, I think, Liquide Imaginaire it was. Okay, so this is the incense. Exquis, thank you very much. At least the memory's not completely gone, right? Where's my incense blotter? Here we go. So this is meant to be the mineralic incense. As I say, as far as olfactory ideas go, that one is not exactly novel. Okay. The first time I smelt this, I thought the exact same thing I'm thinking now. I thought Passage d'Enfer from L'Artisan Parfumeur, composed by Olivier Giacobetti. One of the most interesting incense compositions ever made. This has that same textural incense feel. I think one of the interesting things about Passage d'Enfer is that it makes you think that incense is less about smoky tendrils and more about fabric. It's a kind of incense fabric that's somewhere between velvet and suede, but is certainly some kind of a mohairy sort of downy kind of fabric. Oh, who's this? O2XB. Thank you very, very much. That's very, very kind. Really, really appreciate that. That's a great reference as lacking in depth. Oh, I wonder which one do you mean the Passage d'Enfer? Ilias says, made it live. Hi everyone, you're very, very welcome, Ilias. And yes, you have made it live. You've only missed a few minutes, don't worry. We're on our second perfume, so you haven't missed much. So this does have that textural feel of the incense, and very much like Passage d'Enfer, it's quite snuggly, it's quite cozy, it starts off quite quiet, but maybe where it sort of departs is that you can see that it's starting to go into a more kind of cedary sort of direction, and it does seem to be becoming more and more about the sort of the cleanliness of the cedar wood. It's attractive, but you could probably just do with Passage d'Enfer. Having said that, I haven't smelt the current iteration of Passage d'Enfer for a while. Okay, let's take a sort of 2-minute or so breather from the smelling and look at the press release for this stuff. Where are we? Here we go. So, So6, is it like Amouage Epic Man? Oh gosh, no, not at all. I mean, Epic has got so much going on there, and Epic in many ways has a kind of green fougere, leathery type thing. I mean, Epic is the contents of the chest that has travelled all the way on the sort of the trade route, right? No, not at all. If you're not familiar with Passage d'Enfer, then maybe try and hunt that one down and you'll know what this is like. Okay. Brioni unveils Les Extraits collection, a symphony of purity and refined elegance. And I suppose these first two, you know, the Labdanum, it is elegant. Brioni introduces Les Extraits de Parfum. Reflecting Brioni's iconic design, the collection encapsulates olfactory allure in a flacon that honours ancient techniques in harmony with modern aesthetics, etc., etc. I think I just want to get to the perfumes. So, Encens Mineral by Nisrine Boisaoui-Grillet is a verdant incense-driven scent with lily of the valley and vetiver. In crafting this fragrance, she says, I wanted to explore the captivating duality of incense. I began with the cool vertical notes of incense oil and its citrus and spicy facets. This vibrant opening is enhanced by the spicy notes of black pepper and pink berries, creating an invigorating blend that awakens the senses. At the heart of my creation is Mystical, a unique molecule from Givaudan's palette. Speaking of Amouage, I think Mystical is used in, and now probably going to have my knuckles wrapped if I get this wrong, but isn't Mystical in Purpose 50, I want to say? This responsible and 100% biodegradable ingredient weaves through the fragrance, imparting its own incense-like notes and infusing the composition with vibrant energy. OMG says Exdalia, a press release that doesn't sound like AI word salad. I know, right? We should be grateful for that. Let's re-smell that one, actually. Yeah, elegant is probably a good word, but elegant sometimes can be a touch too conservative, right? Holy says Mystical is in Purpose 50 and also in existence, I believe. Okay, thank you very much. And the other one, Labdanum Brut by Milan Arlan. Is it Alran? I thought it was Alran. They've spelt it Arlan here. Radiates with cistus, Bulgarian rose, and white musk. She says, I wanted to craft a creamy, velvety, musk-rich, textured, powerful, and comfortable... End of sentence. The presence of cistus lends a leather-like patina, infusing the musk with a warm amber quality that carries an almost animalic allure. I then layer in a touch of vanillin, which envelops it in a luminous, powdery balsamic veil, creating a comforting embrace. At the heart of the fragrance, I've chosen Bulgarian rose for its richly intense, almost liqueur-like character. To balance this opulence, I introduce a hint of aromatic rosemary at the beginning, a prelude to the resinous warmth of cistus that unfolds later. The result is a fragrance that feels both sensual and sophisticated, blending high texture with contrasts and correspondences throughout the composition. Okay. And in the UK, I've got the price here of the UK price. It's £260 for 80 mils of Extrait. Okay, let's do the pre-spade ones of those two. Schwarzaldium. Oh gosh, I'm really sorry if I'm mispronouncing your handles. I heard that the lilies in this one are more prominent than the incense, which leads me to believe it's more moody rather than calming. A bouquet of lilies enveloped in burnt frankincense. that makes it sound much more dramatic than what I'm getting on the blotter. Okay. So, pre-sprayed, where are we? Pre-sprayed incense. I just keep thinking of Passage d'Enfer. It's clean, it's cool, it's gentle, it's subtle, it's a suede-like incense, very, very cedary, hasn't changed a huge amount in the last 3 hours, I think. Do these come across as extra strength, says Gender Goblin? That's a whole other, because, you know, what does that actually mean? You know, we know this whole thing of, there is still this idea out there that if something is an extrait, that means it needs to have like this nuclear sillage, whereas actually quite often the opposite is true. Extraits, if anything, sometimes sit closer to the skin because they're so heavy. It certainly does feel as though it will keep going for a while. Probably what I'll have to do is, like, you know, re-smell them tomorrow and report back. And pre-sprayed Labdanum. That was the one we started with, wasn't it? Extrait de Cologne says, yeah, very good, Dahlia. It's just, it's I think unquestionably made of good stuff, but it's just this block. It's just this rather unexciting block. And I guess unexciting is another way of saying conservative. Okay, let's do the final two. So where are we? Let's do the Papyrus. This is called Papyrus Eternel, and it's by Alexis Dadier, who I believe is currently at Robertet. Really, really interesting perfumer. I don't think I've smelt anything by him for a while. And papyrus is a interesting material. I don't know when we say papyrus, does that usually actually come in the perfume as cypriol? I don't know. Other people will know better than I do. We want excitement, says Alex. Yes, and I'm just, seeing my words reflected back at me in the chat. I'm thinking, okay, well, am I being unfair? Does everybody want excitement? So maybe not necessarily putting a value judgment on it. I personally would like them to just have a bit more of intrigue. But we'll do final thoughts in a minute. Exciting conservatism is an oxymoron or oxymoron. I still don't know how we're meant to say that word. Okay, anyway, papyrus. Eternal papyrus. Now, these final two are the ones that I think are the most interesting, the more interesting. The papyrus one is actually playing a more complex game because it is woody and it's still cedary, but it's a little bit green. It makes me think a little bit of, didn't Alexis Dadier do a scent for Ostens? I'm pretty sure, did he do one of the patchoulis? I think the one that I really, really like. Somebody will tell me in a minute probably if I've got that wrong. And it seems to pull you into its world a little bit more, well, considerably more, significantly more, even though it isn't especially loud and it isn't especially brash. But it's just got that little extra something that I think the others are lacking. You want to delve into it more. You want to find out what's going on here. You want to uncover it. There's a kind of interesting contrast between the greenness and the woodiness. Patchouli Heart number 2, says Gender Goblin. Thank you very much. Well, I think that's actually, I'm pretty sure that's my favourite of the Ostens scents. So this is interesting. Hopefully the pre-sprayed blotter is doing well. And then the last one is by Michel Almarac and Karine Vincent. So it's a Robertet composition as well. And this is their exquisite iris. So Iris Exquis. I suppose we wouldn't say Exquis because if we'd only say it if the iris was feminine, right? Am I right? If it had an E on the end, we'd say Exquis. So it's Iris Exquis, I suppose. And this was interesting because when I smelt this, I actually wondered if it was Almarac thinking he would do some, a sort of extrait version of something that is inspired by the original Brioni signature scent that he made a few years ago. How does it compare to Gucci Pour Homme or Papyrus Oud, says Ilias? Completely different sort of scent, totally different. I mean, Gucci Pour Homme, as you know, has got that whole, pepper, incense, amber thing, totally different. This is much drier. This is much more, I think, about the cedar and the patchouli. Anyway, the iris, yeah, the iris took me straight to the Brioni signature from a few years ago, and this is iris with violet leaf, and quite a marked violet leaf note. So how to describe the smell of violet leaf? Yes, it's green, but it's not grass green. It's like what I would imagine the smell of chlorophyll to be, the smell of photosynthesis, some kind of a connection between greenness and leafiness and stem-likeness and sunshine. It's both sort of strange and green, and yet also very sort of and somehow chemically, and yet very kind of organic smelling as well. And the iris links up with the dryness of that. What's interesting as well is that this is perhaps the most stereotypically masculine of the four, maybe because it sort of harks back to the signature, the Brioni signature scent. But I thought it was rather attractive. I do wonder, I'll be very, very curious to smell the pre-spray blotter, because I wonder if the patchouli is just going to start getting a little bit too brash, a little bit too angry. Iris tinted gasoline. Maybe, see, I never got that really, really gasoline-y thing from violet leaf. But anyway, so let's see what they say. So, Papyrus Eternel, composed by Alexis Dadier, evokes masculine elegance with papyrus, black tea, cardamom, and vetiver. Quote from the perfumer, the smoked black tea note embodies the luxurious and timeless Brioni tuxedo. And actually, tea, I should have mentioned tea because I actually wrote it in my notes, but I didn't mention it. It's a rare example of a properly convincing tea note in perfumery, and you even get the kind of dustiness, really, really dry, powdery dustiness of like a kind of matcha, or something like that. It's a properly well done tea note. Crafted from... wrong paragraph. The smoked black tea note embodies the luxurious and timeless Brioni tuxedo, which served as an inspiration. Ceylon black tea extract and papyrus essence create a unique accord reminiscent of precious Lapsang Souchong tea, complemented by leather, vetiver and ambergris for a refined masculine aroma. I mean, it's not as kind of smoky and burnt as, some of the more pungent Lapsangs, but it is a well-done tea note. This sounds like the most exciting to me, says Ilias. I have a soft spot for violet leaf. Okay, well, let's read up about that one as well. Iris Exquis by Karine Vachon and Michel Amarac is a symphony of iris paired with lavender, suede, and tea. Quote, we wanted to create a textured iris. You can smell vegetal, rhizome, and earthy facets. We enhanced the raw side of the note with a fresh and smoky black tea. The woods and leather extend the power of this note. So, let us go to the pre-sprayed ones. Pre-sprayed papyrus. And I'm hoping... I haven't smelt these pre-sprayed ones, so I'm hoping this is going to be good. Yeah, it is interesting. It's pretty quiet. Quieter than I'd expected, and I guess it's just sort of quietly patchouli woody. But it's certainly more interesting than the other two. And pre-sprayed iris. They're not a million miles away from each other, but thankfully, the patchouli in the iris isn't quite gone in the direction that I thought it might, but there is just a hint. I'm going to say it. There is a hint of woody ambery type stuff, but it is just a hint. And maybe that's why I was reading it as the most overtly masculine one of the four. So, certainly two of them are worth a sniff. I can't shake off this idea that I can still see my notes here. Actually, what did I actually write? Hang on, because what did it say? I've written there's something very board meeting about them. Something kind of decidedly anti-excitement. As though, although these guys, and in this case they are guys because they're meant to be men's perfumes, right? As though these guys have sort of turned up in their finery, you know, with sort of like these really, really flashy suits with the little, the I don't know, with flashy tie pins and things like that. And they're just ready to endure like 2 hours of death by PowerPoint. It's got that slightly staid, unexciting feel to it. But maybe that's why it might appeal to lots and lots of men who work in the city of, I mean, the city of London or something like that. I don't know. But worth checking out. Very, very expensive though. Okay, thank you very much for watching this one. We will take a 2-minute break to let YouTube do its thing, and I'll be back with another mini showcase. Bye now.